How many of you do this and you find yourself after an hour going, I can't believe I just spent the last hour scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling on this phone. Oh, look who's here to help us with this is a big one. Dr. Shahim is back with another session of More Than Mind and how this has become a trap.
It has become a trap. And Shelley, you and I, in previous conversations, we've looked at some of the ways in which, social media, staying in the virtual space can gradually chip away at our confidence, create anxiety, make us feel distorted, our sense of reality feel distorted or disconnected. But what we're talking about here today is a little bit, that trap is a little bit more serious. With the sort of recent events and things that have happened sociopolitically throughout the world, I think that we are seeing a rise in individuals not only having these radical ideas, but acting on them. So it's one thing to be brainwashed and influenced, especially from a social psychology point of view. We're always interested in looking at what happens when a particular ideology then becomes acted out, becomes a behavior. Okay. So there's nothing that's been coined yet or labeled or identified. And so I thought we really need to identify this, call it something, so that we can dive deeper into what is it and how we can confront it. And so TRAP is an acronym of how algorithms rewire minds. And TRAP stands for Tactical Reprogramming via Algorithmic Persuasion. Now, forget about that, it's a mouthful, right? When
Yeah,
we
I
look
don't
at it.
understand what that meant.
Right. Tactical reprogramming via algorithmic persuasion. So,
Okay.
what it basically says is what we consume becomes what we assume.
Oh,
What we consume becomes what we assume. And immediately, what you should be thinking is, oh my goodness, we're consuming all this stuff, and they become assumptions. They may not even be truths. They're just assumptions of truths, right? And so what we're talking about today is something that many of us feel, but that we don't fully understand. And it's this sort of quiet force behind why we keep getting pulled into the same beliefs, emotions, or outrage loops online. Some of us, want to walk away from it, but we feel a little bit more trapped and a little bit more engaged and sort of connected. But what happens is you see these algorithms, they feed the recommendation engines behind social media like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and they
mhm.
subtly influence our thinking and our behavior. And how do they do this? They do this by feeding us content that keeps us engaged, by amplifying what we already believe. So if I'm monitoring your feed and I see that you're interested in this particular belief, fear, situation, then what I do over time, I start pushing out more of the same towards you, so that that initial fear, that initial belief is reinforced and repeated. And what happens when we reinforce and repeat? It gets remembered, and it becomes part of our short-term and long-term memory of what is likely to be the truth or a version of a truth.
You sent a diagram to me. Is this what you're talking about? Is this, can I put this
Yes.
up so we can
Let's
understand? Because I'm
let's
trying.
put it. Yes, exactly. So if we look at the five-stage circular framework of trap, you see what happens is we're exposed to it starts from looking at being having exposure to that particular belief, right? And
Mhm.
so the action comes in that we continue seeking and looking for similar type belief systems. And then what happens is that it starts getting fused into our identity. As we're developing, as we're evolving, and especially younger people, they're much more impressionable. And we'll talk about how dangerous that is for younger people, that what we're exposed to and these assumptions start getting fused into their identity, their social, political, cultural identities. And then those assumptions become normalized, whereas because they probably are not normal, they may be quite radical, and then they become amplified with overexposure, right? So
Mhm.
that's the way that it works, and it continues, reinforcing and impacting us. So, and why is it important? Because unfortunately, just because something is being repeated and reinforced doesn't mean it's real. Everything gets intensified. Conflicts get intensified. We get polarized. Communities become divided, and it erodes our empathy. So when you only see what reinforces a particular belief, you begin to fear, and you actually begin to dehumanize the other. I'm right and they're wrong. I'm good and they're bad. And so social discourse falls apart, and it's less now about communicating and understanding, and it becomes more about I'm right and you're wrong.
When you say this, Dr. Shaim, I can't help to think about the role social media has had in our society. What started years ago as a way for people to be able to connect, and everybody was very excited about this tool for us to be able to connect in ways that we wouldn't before, meet people we would have not been able to meet before. And the progression and what has happened over 15 or 20 years, when you say this trap, at least for me, and I know that I share this thought with people that I speak to, it really does feel like we step into a trap with these phones every day.
Well, let's highlight the opposite as well, because we want to make sure that we're not creating traps for people. We also want to highlight relationships like yours and mine that was created
Yes.
online, right? And concepts such as more than mine that was created as a result of social media, and all the other wonderful things and the good news that can come about. But that takes design. If you
Mm-hmm.
fall into the trap by through default modality, and you're not monitoring your feed, and you're not engaging in critical thinking, in other words, making sure that you're also following individuals that you may totally disagree with, but guess what, it's important to hear their viewpoint. It's
Wait
important.
a minute. Wait a minute. Pause, pause, pause. Did you just say what I think you said?
100%. And I have a post on my gallery that says, here's a quick critical thinking test. Shali, we used to teach critical thinking at university. It was like, 101 of the basics at university. And what is the basics, the fundamentals of critical thinking? For every one idea or opinion that you have, you better search for two or three in contradiction to that idea,
Oh,
opposing thoughts and ideas, so that you can balance that out. And you know what? If you are so confident in your opinion and your belief system, then why do you fear being exposed to ones that may be different? In fact, it should only strengthen your belief system, shouldn't it? So why are we so afraid to hear from the other? Why don't we want to hear their pain? Why is there always some sort of suffering Olympics going on, in that, the other people should not be heard, or as if empathy is something that is scarce, and we only have a set amount of empathy for our own causes or our own beliefs and things. We shouldn't raise a generation like this. These echo chambers are dangerous, Shali. And unfortunately, research from over 100 million pieces of online content show that platforms like Facebook and Twitter, people are disproportionately exposed to opinions that match their own. Okay? So those interactions and networks, all they do is they just become clusters of like minded people that
Mm.
reinforce and repeat these shared narratives. And God help you if you suddenly provide an opposing view or an alternative view. Suddenly the wrath of punishment comes at individuals simply because they're saying, well, here's an alternative perspective. Now, when it comes to younger people, when your sense of self is strongly tied to a group of people or a belief system or a political ideology, what happens is alternative viewpoints become like a personal attack.
Oh, yes,
So, for
yes. And we see that
right?
all the time now.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Why do our political parties, since when have they become like even more distilled and connected to us than our nationalities? People are not even as protective of their nationalities or their cultural backgrounds as they are to their political beliefs. Why? Because it becomes like a personal attack, right?
Mm.
And when you're younger, you're more impressionable, and younger people whose neural architecture is still forming, especially their frontal lobe, they're especially vulnerable because part of growing up is figuring out who you are and what you want to believe in, right? And these people have a desire to look up to individuals and role models, and they see people who are heads of these ideologies, and they often want to align with them and they want to mimic their behaviors. So there's a search for identity, especially amongst late adolescents and young adults, and they use these spaces to kind of test and define who they are. There's this peer pressure of that you're either with us or against us, and it can create these sort of divisive discourses. And look, up until now, those platforms haven't taken the responsibility they need to take, okay, to make a change. And so it's up to us to have some practical strategies in place to make sure that you're designing what you're consuming. And some of the, I want, if parents are listening, there could be some less known warning signs of the younger people getting sucked into this trap. So for example, suddenly if they're not sharing their opinions or expressing their opinions with the family, they're saying things like, I don't know, or I don't want to talk about it. There might be sudden shifts in vocabulary, so adopting jargon or coded language from online groups. There could be hyper moral framing issues, so saying that this is the only way to look at this situation. You don't know, I know better. Your generation has no clue what's going on. And that comes with this sort of overconfidence of position, despite really showing a shallow a way of looking at it, and quite biased in their one way of thinking because there isn't critical thinking happening. And finally, increased secrecy. If there's about their online activity, about who they follow, places that they might go, people that they talk to, the more secret it is, then the more dangerous that can be.
If someone's watching right now and they're wondering if this is a world that maybe they're affected in or they're trapped, you've given some questions for us to sit with and answer. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk about some of these. Again, I love
Yeah.
your questions because it's a really, you can't run from the yes and no when you
Right.
see and you're with yourself, and they're very simple questions that
Yeah.
open, I mean, at least for me, they open up my eyes to a lot of scenarios in my own life.
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley. Go ahead and start them up.
Okay. Do you or someone you know spend more than 4 hours a day scrolling social media without clear purpose? Is that 4 hours a day important or is it anytime?
I mean, it's going into the danger zone when it's
Okay. When
up
it's
to
that.
4 hours and
Okay.
beyond 4 hours. And I
Okay.
think the point here about clear purpose is important. So when you go in raw and without purpose, you're more susceptible to stuff that is coming your way, stuff that you're consuming. Let me give you an example. If you go to the grocery store without a list, what kind of stuff are you going to buy?
Ooh. I think we can all
Maybe,
answer that question. Right.
right?
Nope.
Junk
Right.
and stuff that you don't, yeah. Okay.
Gonna go back to the questions? Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right, Joe, do you find yourself getting angrier or more anxious after being online? Well, yes, it depends on what I'm
Yes.
looking at. Have your
Yeah.
beliefs or opinions changed rapidly based on the content you consume? Do you read or follow accounts that may not align with your existing or newly formed beliefs? Do you feel a sense of identity or purpose by aligning with online communities or causes? Do opposing views online feel threatening or offensive to you? Have you participated in or considered trying an extreme challenge you saw online? Do you feel like your worth is tied to likes, shares, or online engagement? Have people in real life expressed concern about the content that you consume or post? And I love this question. If you lost access to social media today, would you feel lost, isolated, or unsure of your views? Oh, those are
Hmm.
some good questions. Those are some good
Right.
questions.
Tell me why you think that last question is important.
Um, if we don't have a sense of who we are and we're so connected um, with our identity on social media, and that just poof goes away, and just like I poof came on screen all of a sudden, and if all of this disconnected and you feel lost,
Hmm.
um, I mean that's just it's concerning um, for me, especially the ties that people feel like they have in social media. You know,
Yeah.
the need to be here, um, and the beliefs that we're tied to here on social.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be
And then what
concerning.
happens if you lose that,
And
right?
what happens if
If
you
it
lose
takes
that?
you
Then
away.
what's left of you?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And if you're investing so much of you into that space, then that means, gosh, you're much more susceptible to being influenced, listening to and following things, ideas or belief systems that may not be accurate or may not be functional, may not be healthy, right? So, what can we do?
Oh, I
Okay.
love this part. What can we do?
What can we
This
do?
is
What
the
can we do?
good stuff. What can we
Okay.
do?
Well, I'm sure you're already doing a couple of these, but there's things that we need to do. You see, first of all, audit your feed. Purposefully follow voices that challenge your views every
No,
week.
Dr. Shaim, don't say that. I thought you were going to say purposely follow people that align with like yourself. You're telling me to challenge? No.
Yep. Go and see what other people are saying. It's
But
okay.
what if it makes you angry? What if it makes you feel bad? What if it triggers like these emotions in you?
Well, so what, but also, what if it challenges you? What if
Oh,
it cements your existing belief systems? What if it makes you even more confident that, gosh, I'm on the right track and I need to send a little prayer for these people. I wish I could hug them. Why are they so angry? And why are they so, uh, you know, just have lost their way?
yeah. See, that's why you're Dr. Shaheem. That's why. See, you see that little nugget right there? Oh my goodness. What a way to look at it, though. What a way to look at it. Okay. Okay. I'm on
Right?
this train. What do we do
Okay,
next?
so that at least maybe one person or perspective outside of your usual circle, and you don't have to follow them, but you can just read and kind of
Okay.
see what they're saying and doing. Second thing, and probably more important than the first one, is use time and limits. Okay, turn off notifications. Tell
Mm.
yourself that for 4 or 5 hours, for a full day, a whole weekend, I'm not going online. That has to happen.
I
You
love that
we
one.
What's wrong with it? And then I see people apologizing, Shali. I see people coming online and saying, first of all, my position with WhatsApp, right? Like, I treat WhatsApp like I did with the telephone in 1995. Like, I'm going to answer you when I can.
Yeah.
there's I'm
Yeah.
I do, there's people who apologize. They say, "Oh, I had to cook lunch for my son and then I had to go pick him up. I'm so sorry I didn't respond." And I say, "Listen, please, why do we have to apologize for being busy and living life, right? People come on social media and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I wasn't on for a couple of days, I needed." My friend, take that and take a couple of more days. Don't apologize for that. I think we should start apologizing for being on too much to ourselves. You know,
Yes.
just come on and encourage other people to also, and post adventures about your families and times when you were not online, to show individuals that there's life beyond
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
when you're mindful in terms of, don't engage in mindless scrolling, make sure it's mindful scrolling, right? So when I
Mm.
was watching you do this, wouldn't it be great if we went in for a particular purpose or with a particular point, in that activity, and reclaim your identity offline? Ask yourself, is who I am online, like you, Shali? This is one of the first questions a lot of people ask me. They say, "Is Shali really the same online as she is, offline?" And I say, "Oh my God, she first of all, she's so much lovelier and sweeter in so many ways
Oh,
offline." But that's the way it should be, because of course you can't, give that same kind of love and attention to millions of people, even though you try and you do. But you are authentically and genuinely really the same person, if I had to break it down, um, online as you are offline, right? Some people are not. Some people, you wouldn't recognize them,
I know.
in
I know.
person,
I met
right?
somebody recently. I'll leave the name anonymous, but it was somebody
Yeah.
who's very prominent in social media, just in the social media world. And when I met this person in real life, I was like, oh my gosh, like totally, literally two completely different people.
Right.
Very, very loud, political, robust. Um, it blew me away. It blew me away.
Yes. And then you wonder, like, wait a minute, this feels like a distorted sense of reality.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because then what's real? And of course, there are parts of us that's more confidential and private and edited. Sure, it is up to us how we want to curate and manage our impression online. But certainly there should be some alignment in terms of our identity offline and online. And then finally, don't just consume, create. Okay?
Mm.
There's a lot of accounts out there who have an account and they have zero posts, and all they're doing is consuming every day, all day. And I worry about them. First of all, there's a very interesting voyeurism tendency associated with wanting to kind of peep into other people's lives but not sharing their own or any
Hmm.
aspect of their lives. And then also, it's a one-way funnel. And that one-way funnel means that you're just kind of taking it all in, but you're not thinking about how you would create or share content based on who you are. Your identity is being shaped but you're not actually working on shaping your identity in terms of the content that's shared. So these are some of they're simple, right, Shali? They're
Yeah,
easy things we do.
easy, easier said than done sometimes. But as we close this session of More Than Mine, I want to find these. Where are they? Maybe I don't have them on here. I thought I had my self reflection questions, but I think I just have my
Yeah,
assessment questions on here.
no
But
problem.
really,
I have them.
yeah,
I
do you
can,
have them? Do
yeah.
you want to read them to us?
Yeah, sure. So, as we've said in the past, what we do is at the end of the session, we leave you with some questions for you to continue the conversation, for you to keep thinking about, what does this mean for me? And how can I sort of deepen my knowledge about the topic? And in relation to TRAP, or the topic that we've just talked about, let me say it one more time. What TRAP stands for? It's tactical reprogramming via algorithmic persuasion. Okay. So ask yourself this: how do I generally form my opinions? Where have they come from, that programming? Is it school, society, culture, friends, experiences, social media? Being influenced by something I saw online or by critically reviewing multiple sources? Okay. Do I notice emotional shifts, anger, comparison, fear after certain types of content? And how do I respond to that? What do I do with that pent up anger? How do I dispose of it? Where does it go? Where does that energy go? And if my feed only reflects my beliefs, is it reinforcing growth or limiting my perspective? Let me say that one more time. If my feed only reflects certain beliefs or newly influenced
I
beliefs,
love that one.
is that reinforcing growth and development or limiting my perspective?
Those are big questions to ask, Dr. Shahim, and especially in this day and age where everybody's trying to figure out this new tool that has been given to us. And as you said very beautifully, I would not have had you in my life if it wasn't for this tool. But it has to be used constructively and beautifully in our lives. And it's our responsibility to be able to do that. And I hope today's session of More Than Mind gives you that moment to kind of sit back and reflect how you're using that tool in your own life. Thank you, Dr. Shaheen.
And thank you. I'll see you again next time.
Yeah, and as we say bye-bye, I will tell you that my favorite post to come upon is yours in my mindful scrolling is my Dr. Shaheen.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you.
Bye.